success. Technical challenges aside, I believe I'm back now. We'll see if anyone gives a little shout out in the chat if you can see me now. And back. Yes, all right. Well, lesson learned. I shall not attempt to move any images on the screen. Apparently that was just too much. Glitch paw back on the loose. Yeah, I'll blame the glitch paws, sure. Won't blame them. We can see you, yo. Yes, but your video frame refresh is sketchy. Uh-oh. Yes, I'm dropping frames like a madman. Hopefully we can power through that a little bit. Let me shut down a couple other things I got open here. I don't know what's going on today. This is definitely a strong signal for me to switch my streaming software. I've been putting it off because I got this all set up. Maybe that's got to go on the to-do list sooner than later. This afternoon will be the best. I'll throw that on next week's to-do list. It'll be Jacob next week anyway, so hopefully I'll have a little bit of time next week to set up a whole new piece of software, get everything all the bells and whistles hooked up again. Just dropping frames like crazy though. What is going on? Certainly, maybe the world's internet is just getting crushed far too much right now. All right, well, maybe give me a little feedback in the chat to see how the stream quality is now, see if we've kind of resolved any issues there. Ryan says, this year, so many new eggs on. Yes, I have 16. I think I have all 16 on the screen there as well. And people ask about the release date, April 8. All right, so we can kind of preemptively, or we can start over a little bit here again. So the egg hunt is coming. You may see the 16 eggs around me. They are scattered throughout Queso Canyon, specifically Queso Geyser and Valor Rift. And as well as mentioned earlier, the Dragon Shard egg will be making a comeback as well. Still a little choppy. I don't know what to do about that. Hopefully you can at least hear me okay, but I'm dropping a lot of frames. Let me see here. Let's see. Audio and the images of the egg hunt are fine, so let's soldier on. All right, I'll agree, Ryan, because I don't think I have time to troubleshoot exactly what's going on, why I'm dropping so many frames. Can't say I've changed my layout very much. It could be the sheer quantity of eggs on the screen. I'll see if this makes things any better. Nope, still dropping frames. All right, well, Beth is asking, how long do you expect the spring egg hunt to last for? That is a good question, and I went to open my calendar, and I opened up an entirely different piece of software. I'm off my game now. We typically run the spring egg hunt for about 4 weeks. That would place it at April 6th as the end date. And yeah, I think that's when we're looking to end it as well, just being so many eggs to collect. If that was one of the goals you're going to set for yourself, we like to run it for a good amount of time. And it's a type of event, even if you're not directly participating in it, or you're not too focused on collecting specific eggs or trying to find them all, it doesn't really get in your way at all. So it's kind of nice just even for tackling an adventure in the game or general progression. You can almost treat it just like a subtle bonus loot event throughout the game in many different areas. May 6th, thank you. Dave with the dates again, yep. It'll run from April 8 to April 6, 2020, so a time machine will be required. Yeah, that would be into May. I may have been wrong with that date. I even opened up a calendar. I blame the calendar interface on Mac. The Mac calendar, I've never really liked how you can kind of scroll halfway between 2 months, but then the month kind of fades away a little bit, so everything looks like it's April. Like there's a bunch of numbers under the heading that says April 2020, so you glance down, you see the number 7, and just, I don't know, some subconscious process kicks in, and I think I'm looking at April still. Stezion's taking another crack at guessing there. You might be getting a little bit closer. Dalton says 16 eggs definitely does not need more time. Those are all easy eggs. Well, if you already have all the eggs, 16 isn't a big number. But if you are looking to collect all the eggs and you don't have them yet, then there could be a much larger number than 16 that someone else is setting a goal for. Can we have more ways to obtain egg sweeper moves? If you're referring to the shovels, yes, actually the popular egg sweeper minigame will be making a return this year as well. And we have been looking for a few ways to add another little trickle of them throughout there. So kind of open to suggestions there. Slim says, which of the newest 16 is the hardest, you think? I don't think any of them are particularly hard. They all have pretty straightforward ways of obtaining them. There's none that are on particularly low encounter rate mice, or they don't have very low drop rates. You just have to kind of find the right phases of everything. So there might be a little bit of preparation involved, but once you're prepared and you go and set out to find that egg, I don't think you'll your preparations won't result in you finding that egg. So I don't think any of them are difficult in that regard. I is guessing 4 geyser eggs as Calor, non-eruption, pressure, and eruption. That's a pretty good guess. And seeing as I'm still dropping frames, I guess I may as well put the eggs back on the screen. And that'll be my stuttered slow video as long as the audio is okay. So I can know what you're talking about here. Perhaps drop shovel eggs that contain some shovels, like how lucky eggs are dropped. Yeah, potentially. Is that Total Eclipse top row 4 or 5 from the left? It's a pretty good guess. It's got a nice kind of eclipse theme to it. Peter asks, Dave, given the current global situation, any chance of a Hope Mouse release and maybe a Hope Egg? It was something we kind of discussed. I mean, I know years ago we resolved to kind of not be put in the position of kind of deciding when to manage the Hope Mouse. It was kind of a little bit of an awkward thing, and two, a little bit of a concern in that we wouldn't want to do anything that makes it seem like we're trying to promote the game or do anything that's going to be advantageous for the game on the back of a more serious topic that's going on in the real world. And so we have some reservations there. We don't want to come across as like a marketing campaign or anything like that. And so 8 years ago we decided to put the Hope Mouse in the training grounds. At the time, that was one of, there weren't very many areas in the game either, so it ended up in the training grounds with a sort of more generic global message, and let kind of hunters each decide what that means to them, or if they want to use that in a particular way. As well, kind of with everything going on, I think it's important too to get information from government officials, healthcare professionals, more than kind of game developers and designers. So it would be a little bit nervous. I wouldn't want to put out any information that I'm not fully qualified to share with other people. And definitely in the world of the internet, misinformation can spread like wildfire. So I think the only advice I'd feel comfortable sharing is to get your advice from people who are experienced and trained to help out in the most effective manner. Q asks why we never have a Zuriel egg. Mixed kind of feedback. Sometimes several years ago, the Shelter egg comes to mind, and that's on a whole other tier than Zuriel, I think. But we had this outcry and a lot of suggestions for like just obscenely difficult eggs, and I think I get the sentiment of where that's coming from, because it's very satisfying when you get it, right? Like that kind of pent-up anticipation of when you're finally going to finish a very long and arduous journey. Now, Zuriel is a little different because it's a little more guaranteed. You have a more clear progression path where you're making steps toward it that you can't kind of go back on from there. I'm a little hesitant to add any eggs that are too over the top, especially with the sheer quantity of eggs that are out there now. Eileen says, no Egg Master for me this year. Still map happy and getting close to 25k clues. No maps for Valor Rift, no biggie. Yeah, that has kind of been put on the back burner. We discussed a few creative ideas of how we could approach maps in Valor Rift, just being it's a bit of a unique area where you don't have a lot of autonomy over controlling the mice you encounter. And you might create these feelings of you want to stop on the floor you're on. So we had a few creative ideas for that, maybe even incorporate the scavenger hunt maps a little bit there. But we put that on the back burner so we could focus on new permanent areas and another high-level adventure. Ryan asks, will there be lucky ribs found in the Caloringus egg? It's a pretty good guess that he has an egg, but if he did, there would not be a rib in the egg, no. Claire says, what's the egg with a door on it, top right? It is in the Valor Rift. If you look around some of the iconography in the Valor Rift, that might give a good hint of what to expect with that egg. Will Wild Tonic Egg be available in Queso Geyser while hunting with Wild Tonic? I'd have to double check. That might be a good one. I know we updated the, was it the Energy? I think there's an Energy egg, and we updated it because you couldn't find it with the Super Energy charms, but that might be a good catch as well, that a Tonic egg might need some backwards compatibility. And I am not even looking at the egg hunt here. What am I doing? There we go. So I'll just jot that down as well. I grab the type for that egg. Check. Oh, what's going on here? Yep, it says Zuriel isn't obscenely difficult. Oh, I might put that down in the suggestion for next year if we're looking for some more eggs to add to existing areas. Wolfie says the winding up the shelter egg ever makes its debut. Yeah, about all you could do to prepare for that is stockpile Galleon Gouda, which even doesn't have that dramatic of effect, but it's probably the only thing you can do to try and tip the odds in your favor a little bit. And a fair point, we have an M400 egg, so the Zuriel egg is easier than that. Zuriel's like the last boss in the game that doesn't have an egg. That's kind of a good point too, to create some continuity. Geekoid also asking, will there be a rib if there is a Caloringus egg? He said, yeah, no rib. There wouldn't be a rib. It's a pretty good bet. I could all but confirm that with that artwork, I think it's pretty obvious who's going to drop that egg. And if it's what you think it is, no, there won't be a chance of a rib in there. Cue a suggestion to add the Valorif supply kit as a very rare loot in Total Eclipse egg. I think the Total Eclipse already drops one of those, if I remember correctly. It's been a while. But I think that might be on the Total Eclipse's drop table. You can get a supply kit already. Yeah, George there says, I'm all about not adding really hard eggs. Have all the eggs, but don't really enjoy hunting the really hard ones. That's kind of a balancing act. I don't think, you don't want too many of those where now you could spend 4 weeks and you're just hunting just a small handful of eggs. It's kind of a slow feeling of progression. But definitely kind of as the years go on, there get to be more and more trickling in there. So it might have to be kind of a ratio approach. Says, will tungsten geyserite be in any of the eggs? Well, considering there are some queso geyser eggs, it's a pretty safe assumption. Ryan says, this year's spring egg hunt, are we having any new event gameplay? No, it's pretty well similar, or pretty well identical to last year's event. The Egg Sweeper minigame is making a return. You can do the egg charge cycle as well. You'll be able to charge up your excavator. The only big difference is the addition of 16 new eggs. Sharon says she picked up some Galleon Gouda in the birthday event. Yeah, I think that was one of the less common cheese you could get in the Epic slot if you had a fully upgraded break room. Sejin asks, can you get all these eggs if you just start your first Ultimate Umber run and first Epic Eruption in this egg hunt? No, I don't think so. You might need a little bit more of a prepared run than that. That said, if you're doing your Ultimate Umber run, you probably want to have some other augmentations active as well to really make the most of your Ultimate Umber run to begin with. And Claire says she likes the musical themed egg there with the treble clef and the flowers. Yes, that one's nice too. See, I'm tempted. I want to make that one bigger because the artwork's awfully nice, but I guess you'll have to wait for the start of the egg hunt. I won't tempt fate again and try to move around any of the images. I think maybe having that many images on one slide, for whatever reason, this software just won't have it. May have also been a bit of a bad call. I think I used the high resolution assets when I put together the slide, so that might be contributing to the problem with 16 eggs. That might be a 32 megabyte slide I have up there. So maybe I'll file that away in the memory banks to not put so many high resolution images on the screen at one time. My RAM is probably not too happy about that. Alex would guess the Bard floor egg. I'd say that's a pretty good guess. Is there a high floor egg in the Valor Rift? No. I'll say there won't be any sort of floor requirements. So it will kind of create that awkward scenario of, well, do you need to do an Umber run? Do you need to do a regular run? And we'll transition a bit from the spring egg hunt to some final birthday feedback. So actually, I think this was a topic we had on maybe the last 3 or 4 Feedback Fridays. But we're looking to kind of get the final feedback from the birthday event as well. We already have a lot of notes from the other Feedback Fridays that we've filed away for the 2021 event. We've already created the milestone to work on that, and we put our notes in a task there, and it's kind of a nice way. Just naturally, when we go to start the 2021 event, there's just these notes are sitting there waiting for us well in advance. Actually, that might be good to look over the things that we'd already written down. Let's see if I can find that. Yeah, cool. And I'm gonna have to look at. Nope. So all the way ahead, we are looking at the Spring Egg Hunt 2021. And wasn't that one. Now I'm having a hard time finding it. Uh-oh. Eating my words about making it so easy to find. Did it somehow get inadvertently closed? Nope. Uh-oh, that's been misplaced. That's getting written down. Maybe just because I'm being put on the spot, I'm failing to see something. Alex says, Empowered Super Brie seemed less exciting than normal Super Brie as the general theme. Yeah, I think that was pretty common feedback. That was definitely something we had in our notes as well. I think we'd revisit that and maybe do something else with the QA room. Took me a second to remember which room did the Empowered Super Brie. Q asks about the egg hunt. Was a suggestion to increase the drop rate of eggs as you ascend in the Valor Rift applied for several of the eggs. Yeah, I think that we did that. I think how we ended up implementing that for at least some of the eggs is that the champion mice drop them. So they are a little bit hard to catch, but their encounter rate goes up as you climb the tower. So it'll intrinsically make the drop rate go up a little bit. Session says, leave the gilded step egg for next year. Terry says, I liked the cheese from the break room. Our goal there was to add a little bit more of a stretch goal, a little bit something if you felt like you wanted to hang out in the factory, maybe all your friends were in the factory, you liked them taking you on hunts, but you're kind of otherwise done. You finished the adventure, you weren't too interested in collecting the Super Brie. To have a little something extra without it taking over the whole focus of the event or just being an absolute kind of loot pinata style thing, still wanted the overall theme of the event to be kind of a laid-back way to have an opportunity to earn some Super Brie. Sejin says, birthday some way to transform Coggy Colby into factory repair charms would be appreciated. Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, you can kind of indirectly do that by hunting with it. The mice will drop the parts, and then the parts you can buy the charms with, but something a little bit more direct might be interesting. Terry says, I feel like I got Vengeful Vanilla too frequently. I don't think that one was too abundant. It was one of the more likely cheese, though. Free Schmidt says, I'm glad that even though I didn't play as much as I usually do, I still got the journal theme and the trap. And that was definitely the intention. I'd be interested to know if anyone didn't manage to finish the adventure, get the trap, and the journal theme. I definitely wanted to set the bar pretty low on that. Again, just kind of reinforcing the theme of a little bit more of a laid-back event about being, hey, I earned some Super Brie, and the more time you spend in the factory, the more Super Brie you earn. But then some of the more limited time-only rewards were set a little bit of a lower bar to unlock them a little quicker during the event. Ryan says, I'd rather go with event currency that's guaranteed to expire in the year. Prevent stockpiling, gives us things we want in the boss cheese. Yeah, that's interesting too. That might be something interesting to play with. And it seems like that's not had too much friction in some of the other items that we expire. Now, they're not things you can cash out, but for the snow golems, the limbs and the heads and the torsos go away, or for the birthday of the various factory parts go. One of the problems we had with event currency in previous years was this hesitation to even spend it just in case next year there was something better. And so for events for a while, we'd run these queries. Okay, how much event currency did people have before, and how much did they have after, to try to deduce, well, how much is getting actually spent, and even kind of logging, well, what are people spending the event currency on? We found the vast majority of people just kept hoarding it, and they just ended up never spending it. So there'd be these years where we'd have like the frozen coins and stuff like that. And they would just kind of hoard it forever just in case next year there was something better. But having it physically expire, or even the narrative of a nice coin, I mean, that could melt for the Great Winter Hunt. And I'm kind of encouraged you felt like, okay, good, I can cash out. I know I'm not missing out on anything by holding on to these, but still give a good sense of autonomy and choice over what you'd want. I think it would come with a little bit of a twist in that there'd be some less variety. Obviously, the more difficult to acquire rewards would cost more currency, so it'd be a little bit more of a direct time to cash out relationship rather than you could kind of get lucky on your first run, get something good, or you might even get back-to-back. So it'd be a little bit less of a varied experience, which I think some hunters like a little bit more of a guaranteed, okay, this much time, this much reward, very kind of calculated, whereas other people kind of like the more wondering, well, what if, what am I going to get? I like to kind of be surprised by what's going to happen. And so a little bit of, try to incorporate a little bit of both where we can. Robotics says, would be more useful if crafting used empowered Super Brie SB retain the power bonus. You can smash your empowered Super Brie and you'll get the magic essence. So I mean, if you don't like the empowered, you can smash it, use it as essence in your crafting. Way too much Inferno Havarti in my epic cheese collection. Yeah, I think some of the wording was a little off. The hierarchy of that cheese, the epic slot was throughout the entire game the last tier of cheese in areas. So Inferno Havarti being for the dragon mouse, and you have to hunt the tribal mice, then the jungle of dread up to the dragon. And so that whole slot was occupied with sort of the final tier of cheese. But I think by naming it epic, it shifted everything to some of the more high level or more lengthy areas that have very, very difficult to acquire cheese relative to the other areas. Salim says, it would be nice to have a way to slightly balance parts after closure so large charms can be bought without having to smash everything. Yeah, I don't know if it's necessarily needed, because during the event you have that level of autonomy. The parts that you're collecting are related to the room that you're hunting in, so anytime you have too much of one part, you can kind of even it out. And so if you end up with a little bit of imbalance, it was something you had some agency over. And then you can always smash them into the regular party charms. And at least the silver lining there is that is actually the best way to create, if you're looking for ultimate party charms, the best way to get them is to smash all your parts, get regular old party charms, and actually hunt with them. And you'll get the most ultimate party charms per factory part, but you'll also have to invest that time. So as soon as you start buying the higher tier charms, you end up with fewer charms, but in a quicker amount of time. So it's kind of a bit of a trade-off. Q says, if you're aiming for crowns, the imbalance is the price you have to pay. I suppose a little bit, yeah. That's it. Like I said, you can smash them into the party charm, so you can still do something with them. Sharon is still in the factory to get a gold crown for the dino suit. Actually, that's a very interesting question, too. What do hunters think about this new event shutdown procedure that we've been doing? We did it with the Great Winter Hunt, and now we've done it with the birthday event, where we leave the event mice in place after the event has come to an end, and they stop dropping loot, and all the kind of progression things are disabled. So for the Great Winter Hunt, you could no longer get your golem parts, but you could still cash out your final golems that way. For the Super Brief Factory, they stopped dropping the factory parts, and you could no longer pump to earn any more reward crates, but you could still find the mice there. Diamond says, I like it. Anamina says, yes, love the event mice stay. Way better leaving the event mice there. I like the event mice stay in a bit in case you're in the middle of the map. Yeah, great. Seems like I thought it would be pretty unanimous positive feedback. That came about, there was actually a bug report. It was kind of a very edge case thing happened where last year we shut down the birthday event. And so we put what we call kind of the vacant lot mice in there. And it's like the white mouse, the brown mouse, kind of a few of the indigenous breeds of mice. And then when we shut it down and you leave, then when you look on your profile, it would be like you didn't capture any of the mice specifically in that spot. So again, that's a bit more of a detailed stat you can look at on your hunter profile to see, well, have you caught the field mouse in this location, this location, this location? So it was a little bit of a bait and switch almost. So we thought, well, okay, let's just leave the event mice in position, and the event shuts down, you can't progress anymore. And that came up, we saw that report before the Great Winter Hunt, and that ended up trying it out in the Great Winter Hunt as well, so it seems like it went very well. Yeah, great for those still needing crowns. Grats, well done. Robotic does a dab. Oh, elbow cough. That's a new emote. That kind of looked like a dab at first. KDM says it's great. Removes the mini heart attack of not completing event maps. That's good for finishing off the maps. Now, if you're out of Coggy Colby, the mice are still, or some mice are still attracted, or they still require Coggy Colby, so you might get kind of stuck there. But the consolation mode as well, we activate during shutdown, so you could put it in that mode, or hopefully you can invite somebody to your map who has a little Coggy Colby left. She says, but Vincent is gone. Yep. That one's a little bit tough during the shutdown phase because you can no longer pump any cheese. Like I said, the consolation mode is active though, and then typically the consolation rewards work where you get the gold, the points, ancient charms, king's credits, and sometimes some of the event stuff. And it's kind of whatever you would get in the chest, you get that sort of percentage of the mice that were captured on the map when you claim that reward. So you get kind of a little slice of the chest, but not the whole thing. Like the shutdown without the vacant lot. Trevor says, please work on something to auto-generate tourneys instead of flogging the death. Oh dear. Yeah, for sure. The scheduler runs for all non-event tournaments, but I guess we don't have kind of an event-specific tournament handler. So we'll thank her for her time and her effort for sure. Kind of operating under, she'll let us know if she's completely overwhelmed, but that does seem like a good idea as well to make some sort of scheduler. Doing the maps caused part imbalance. Yeah, I could see that a little bit too, depending on how the chips land there. Especially some of the rooms, there might be a more rare mouse, but the drop rate of the parts is still pretty good, so you might end up with a few more of those parts than others. Peter says, on the subject of events, are there any plans for the sport mice to appear again? Again, it's kind of been on the back burner. I think the plan there is to add them to the tournament hall, and I think to reduce kind of the scope of that, and just in the interest of making them available. I think we've been holding off because we wanted to do it in a creative way, like add a new heads-up display, maybe a new type of cheese, a little bit of gameplay there. But I think in the interest of just getting them into the game without the development effort of developing a tournament hall area, we're just going to add them to that area, or potentially in Valor. But kind of no timeline on when we'll be able to do that. Session says, would removing the ability to start pumping to a new crate be interesting for next year? It would let people finish their crate and leave after. Yeah, that might be interesting, kind of one more crate. It's a little harder to implement the kind of one more functionality than it was. That said, during the Great Winter Hunt, you could finish off as many golems as you had parts for. The golem parts, though, they have a little bit more of a time commitment than the Coggy, but that said, you don't have a week to pump, so it might be another 5 or 7 crates depending on how fast you're going. Write that down as well. Jesus says, now I need something interesting to spend my tournament tokens on. Yeah, it's been long overdue to kind of overhaul the tournament system. I just kind of haven't had the bandwidth to start that project. My team was disappointed with tourneys. That was definitely feedback we have written down as well. So there's a couple odd things. The prizes, I think, could be a little bit better. And Vincent not being worth any points certainly seemed like an oversight. Getting the Fete de Silver was a big imbalance, too much time in the break room. That's a bit of a challenge of adding the new mouse, for sure. It'd be better if each room had a new mouse. And I've been kind of scaling back a little bit on how often we add new event mice, as the list of event mice has been growing, so it's made us a little bit hesitant to add too many new event mice. Yeah, new mouse next year must be a Wanderer like factory tech and available in all rooms. Yeah, that's interesting. It might be tough to always find the perfect solution for that, though. It's something we certainly keep in mind in terms of doing maps as well as crown collecting. It's on our mind because it's certainly a popular objective a lot of hunters take on. But it's tough too. I feel like it might not always be a perfect solution that's going to kind of make everything work well. So I don't think we can design a whole event around King's Crowns and how it affects King's Crowns, and more about them being kind of the supplementary side of things, and they kind of tell a story about how you went through an area by the crowns you've collected. Sharon says a partial crate for the last one when it ends would be good too. That might be interesting as well, and the math wouldn't be too hard to work out there of the percentage of how far you've pumped, that percentage of rewards. Might need a little bit of massaging with the break room. Devil says, can you all start making the pump a button so the last one pump is really is one last hunt, i.e. button stops after the event? Not sure I follow you. Can you all make the starting pump a button so the last one pump really is one hunt? Yeah, no, I'm not sure if I follow you exactly. Nice thing about the sports mice and the terminal halls now, you have enough time to get the Olympics not starting in 2 months. Yeah, I don't know if we even need to time it specifically with that, but I think that's what it's going to kind of come down to. If somebody adds them, moves them out of the event mouse category and just adds them attracted to regular old cheese there. Desmond says, maybe irrelevant, but how do you guys balance the loot in eggs? Well, what we do for events, for the most part, is we use loot per hunt as sort of the main metric that we kind of do a lot of the reward design or reward structure around. So take any item in the game, and we try to determine how many hunts on average does it take you to acquire that item, including all the hunts to acquire all the cheese from scratch. And then when we have that number, then we take a look at the drop rate of the egg, the chance to find that item inside the egg, or really outside the egg on any, this could apply to golems. And then we line that up so it's about equal. And then for events, we typically try to buff that a little bit, and it might be anywhere from a 50% buff to a triple buff, but it kind of depends on the nature of the event. The golems are particularly rewarding. Each golem gives you kind of like a little 50 to 100% boost in loot, so if you get all 3 of them going, it's almost like a triple loot event in that regard. But that's kind of how we approach it, to keep it a little bit in line with how the normal game pacing works, and then during an event making it a little bit faster. Sejin says, the same mouse as a boss 2 years in a row felt a bit odd in my opinion. Cycling the boss to another room and I knew bosses feel smoother. It was a little tricky. I'm sure we could come up with another character that was another good fit, but Vincent was such a perfect thematic fit for the factory narrative that we kept him as the final boss that you encounter there. Plus 2, we've been trying to play around with different ways we can free ourselves up to spend more time on permanent areas. As the game grows and as the years go by, we have to spend more time on maintaining what's already there, and that starts eating up the time that we can spend putting into events and new areas and adventures. So we've been trying to see where we can trim back some of our efforts somewhere so we can focus them more elsewhere, and by kind of making the events a little bit more repeatable with some refreshed rewards and adjusting to feedback as we go. We're hoping going forward that makes things a little bit easier to maintain for us. Q says crowning should not always be equal to the most optimal way of hunting. Yeah, I mean, I think I kind of agree with your sentiments. And like I said earlier, that it'd be difficult to incorporate or take crowns into effect of every single design decision of an area. It is going to always feel like kind of supplementary gameplay in that regard. Might kind of paint yourself into too many corners. It's like, well, we could do this. No, it's not good for crowns. Can't do it. And so it's something we keep in mind, but it isn't kind of the torch we light all of our decisions with, if I can make a really horrible metaphor. Okay, so jotted down some good notes, and then right at the top of my notes is to track down the other notes from Feedback Friday. I got to find where they went. I always add them to my summary, though, and those get put into source control. So worst case, I have those, but I swear I made a task for next year already, and I already summarized a few bullet point notes here and there about feedback to incorporate for 2021. So I have a nice little list to update with that as well. So the final thing I wanted to go over on Feedback Friday was a quick update on the upcoming Android requirement changes. So on March 12th, we posted a news post about the upcoming Android requirement change for the mobile app. Now again, this only affects the mobile app. So if you're on your Android device using a web browser, like you fire up Google Chrome on your Android device and you go to mousehuntgame.com, you're going to be unaffected. This is, you downloaded the app from Google Play, you're playing Mouse Hunt using the app. Just unfortunately, we can no longer support some things. We have to upgrade our platform to be able to support things like Facebook sign-on, as well as there's good important security and bug up fixes as well in this framework update. But that's going to increase the minimum required version of Android. And it goes from, let me just go right to the news post so I make sure I don't misspeak anything. So if you go to the in-game news, if you're in the browser under Kingdom, you can go to News. Scroll down a little bit. It was on March 12th, and I posted it. It's called Android Requirement Update, and the minimum requirement is going to change from Jelly Bean. Jelly Bean will no longer be supported, and it is now going to be, I'm trying to think what comes after Jelly Bean. No supported version from 4.1 to Android 4.4. I'm trying to remember the name of that. KitKat, there it is. So if you have KitKat, which is Android 4.4, you're A-OK. It'll be good to go after the update. Now that said, that news post said we were looking to release it the week of March 23. Some of our switch to remote work kind of put a little bit of a monkey wrench in that plan. We've got a little bit of testing to wrap up. We've concluded our beta. Huge thanks as well goes out to all the Discord users and people on Feedback Friday as well who signed up, sent in bug reports as well, helped us test the framework upgrade. That went really well, so huge thanks to everyone who volunteered their time and efforts to help us out with that. It made it a lot easier because Android, they call it fragmentation, right? There might be a lot of different versions of Android on different devices. That said, iPhone has its fair share as well now too. You know, you got there's still people on iPhone 6, 7, 8, and there's different versions of iOS. Although typically for MouseHunt, most people are running the newest version of iOS, which kind of helps streamline testing a bit. So all that to say is our shift to remote work, we had to order another Android test device as well, just to make sure developers have a test device. They got stretched a little bit thin with everybody not being able to share them at the office. There's a few delays in the delivery of that device. I think just kind of with everything going on, maybe the supply chain's a little bit stretched thin or understaffed, so a little bit of patience is required. Fortunately, though, it's not a critical update. I think the only thing you'll notice when that update goes live, other than the Android version increasing, is for iOS users, you'll be able to sign in with Facebook using iOS 13 again, because the framework will be upgraded to support newer Facebook code, and I'm sure that day is going to come for Android as well, so it's good to get that upgrade out of the way. So it's still in the pipeline, going to be released as soon as possible. Just I'd say just keep checking the news section for when that comes. And for sure, all that's to say, if you go read the news post from March 12, that will shed some more light onto it. And just want to say it's delayed. So if you've been keeping an eye on Google Play looking for that update, it's not quite ready yet. Session says, no more jelly beans. Does that mean no longer exists? Kit Kat, there we go. I should have been looking at the chat. Everyone's reminding me Kit Kat is 4.4. And if you're a little bit confused too, I believe, I'm pretty sure all the Android updates, all their operating systems are named after candy and tasty treats, and they're in alphabetical order as well. So K comes after J, I think, if I know my alphabet here. So that's why Kit Kat is a newer version than Jelly Bean. Ryan's asking for the quar. Excellent request. We'll move on to the question and answer reward. As at the hour mark is usually when I start to lose my voice as well, so it's a good time to wrap. And I took my last sip of coffee. Tragic. So this week's trivia question has to do with the spring egg hunt, and it is, what year is it? What year was the spring egg hunt first released? So MouseHunt came out in 2008, if I'm not mistaken. I'll look at my profile. Yeah, it's March 7, 2008, but there was no spring egg hunt in 2008. What was the first year the spring egg hunt came out? And it looks like Ryan is first with 2011, which is correct. 2011 was the first occurrence of the chocolate factory. Hunters had to collect 9 unique eggs before they could then find the final 10th golden egg, which granted access to the chocolate factory. So a little bit of a Charlie and the Chocolate Factory reference, which is still kicking around in the Super Brief Factory too, where you had to find the golden egg to get access to go on the factory tour. I'll put a reward link in the chat. Maybe I'll update the text below me as well with the reward link. Cool. For some reason that changes immediately. Neat. Desmond says, last question, unsure if asked, but can we merge all bases into the Ultimate Iceberg base? That has come up on other Feedback Fridays, so that's kind of something on our mind, is a way to add a very similar base in a permanent way, especially kind of once the Ultimate Iceberg base ages itself a little bit. Often some limited edition stuff ends up being a great way of getting feedback for new permanent unlocks in the game. So similar to the Hothouse base, after many years, many other people were interested in getting that bonus, and we added the living base, which I'm actually using right now. It is the living base, correct? I like the artwork on it. I'm going to guess Lauren drew it. If it's really good-looking plants, I just assume Lauren drew it. Yeah, the living base, which has a slightly better stats than the Hothouse base, so I think when the time comes and we're looking to add an in-game permanent equivalent to the Ultimate Iceberg base, that have a slightly better stats than the Ultimate Iceberg base, and it would carry with it the same benefit of being all bases in one. And no guarantees, but that certainly makes a whole lot of sense to me. Maybe a requirement of having to own all the other bases, or if we're looking to just kind of streamline the area and reduce the complexity a little bit, it might be able to be obtained in another way. Be interesting. What do you think of the living base, the way we approach that, kind of waiting a little bit for the hothouse base to kind of have its time in the sunshine? And it was actually added in a slightly higher title area, so you have to be a count to be able to unlock the living base, because you need access to the Narnia Rift, and you need to do a little bit of gameplay in the Narnia Rift, and then that makes you a little bit more powerful if then you want to take a step back and go to the Living Garden. Session says an Iceberg map rework that introduces something that's not Portal Parts Alliance to fuse the bases. I think some of the feedback too, kind of reading between the lines of feedback on Portal projectors, was that putting kind of permanent, I don't know what the right word is, but kind of important progression mechanics behind treasure maps, I think it kind of is a little too polarizing. Where some players, they like maps, so they love it. Other players don't want to do maps, so then they feel like I'm forced to do this kind of supplementary gameplay objective. So I think we're going to kind of shy away from that. Not to say we'll never do it again, but it's kind of, we tread lightly with that now. House says, I'll calculate based on that in the future. Thanks. Well, no guarantees, but I think if we keep getting that feedback, and it's not the first time that suggestion has come up, so it's kind of dwindling around or kicking around our subconscious as we ideate. So I could see it happening in the future, but not a guarantee. Swift says, require the 4 bases. Great way to handle those Ellie and the upgrades. Zum broke the tower. Well, it can be fun. It kind of changed the dynamics of it a little bit. I would say it made it completely trivial. Yes, require the other bases. That seems to be a popular suggestion as well, at least in the chat. KDM says, what's next after Easter? Sure, yeah, we've actually yesterday we had a remote brainstorm meeting, which I was a little bit nervous about because it had the whole team in a voice and video chat, and even in person, having a conversation with that many people at times can be a little bit challenging because a lot of people are waiting their turn to speak. So you need a good kind of amount of structure and note-taking and discussion points, but it went very well, actually. So it was kind of neat, too, after almost 2 weeks to see everybody's face again. It was just kind of a nice morale boost as well. But that went very well. We've been kind of fleshing out the next permanent area idea, and we hit a little bit of whatever the game developer's equivalent of writer's block is. We kind of kept different ideas, and just kind of nothing was working out. We weren't quite 100% happy with anything, but now I think things are starting to gel. There's something that feels like it's a good fit for the game, and as the much in the past talked about floating islands kind of theme is starting to come together. And it's interesting, if I go and search my Google Docs for floating islands, probably the first document might pop up in 2014 or 2015, but it's completely different from some of those pitches. So it's getting there. We're in the process of just the final stages of green lighting that, firming it up, getting all the tasks in place and going. As well as, if you've watched Jacob, you may have seen he has probably illustrated a few of mice for that area as well. So kind of the theme and the narrative and the whimsy of it, we'd always liked, but just the specifics of how the hunting works. Took a lot of ideation before we arrived at something that I think will work for the game. KDM Summer, when do we wait? Do we want them to wait for Halloween? Yeah, certainly. It's a good time between event season to work on those adventures. And that's if you've done them all, you might be waiting for a new adventure as well. What about some currency that drops from the Deep Mouse so that you can buy the projector for it? That might be a neat way to approach the Portal projector kind of mixed feedback, is just give 2 ways to go about doing it. You can do maps, or you could do another objective. Now, you still might feel compelled to do maps because it's giving you more opportunity, right? Because you're going through, let's say, if there's an iceberg portal projector and you could get it from the Deep Mouse or from a map, you feel like, well, I better do maps on my way to the Deep Mouse because that almost like double my chances. So it might not perfectly fit it. It's a potential solution. It says spellbook base is a lie. Yeah, it's an upgrade between the Aqua and others. Trevor says, will the extra charge kit be back this year? You know, off the top of my head, I don't know. I think all the same kits and baskets from last year are making a return, and there's a few other kind of promotional things that we're adding based on the egg sweeper as well, kind of after seeing what hunters wanted to get there. Getting no audio here. Audio is fine on my end. Should be okay. I'm seeing my mic bar go there. All right, well, with the quar wrapped up, we should wrap up Feedback Friday. So thank you for joining me, hunters. I'm going to put the eggs back up one more time. I never like being that large on camera. So yeah, to recap, the spring egg hunt is coming on April 8th, unless something disastrous happens. I always like to qualify it with that. Let us know too. I'll be posting a summary on both the forums and my page, so you can let us know final birthday feedback as well. I want to collect all that last feedback, put it all in one spot, so we have something months ahead of the 2021 event. I just jumped back in time 10 years. Next year's event will be all set with lots of feedback. See what we can do to mix up things like the empowered super breed, tweak some of the cheese stuff, maybe even the shutdown phase as well. Now hunters have been able to see how the shutdown phase works and give us feedback on that as well. And finally, just a little heads up that if you were waiting for that Android update that we mentioned on March 12, it has been delayed, but it is still in the pipeline. We'll get it out as soon as possible. That's especially important for iOS users. If you sign in with Facebook and you're on iOS 13, you may notice the buttons grayed out with a message saying we're working on an update. That's the update we're working on, so we'll get it out as soon as we can. So thanks for joining me, hunters. Happy hunting. Be safe, and we'll see you next time.
Such a beautiful you. You're the master of the mausoleum. Look at me, barely at level 3. I am begging for a piece of gold. All the mice, all the terrible mice that you naturally attract to you. I wait with the trap and the bait, and they ain't biting in 1,000 years. I'm waiting on a